Reliable old Farmall. Bet she'll fire right up. I think this thing needs a tune-up. Let's go over to John's shape and see if we can get a tune-up. Hey Bigfoot, where did you get this old tractor?
I found it in the forest.
My tractor's running really bad. I was wondering if you could give it a complete tune-up. We'll start on it right away, probably have it done in a couple days. Thanks, John.
First thing we're going to do is change the oil on this machine. Bigfoot found it out in the forest, so it's probably been sitting quite a long time, and we're going to just see if there's any sludge or anything in here. And actually there was no sludge. It drained out really nice. It was black. It was ready to be changed, but definitely was not too bad. And right here it basically has a drain plug on the bottom of this filter. So I get another bucket and basically drain out the bottom of this oil filter. And it's pretty easy. There's just a nut on the top. It's easy access. You just unscrew it, take it off, and in my case I try to clean up any debris inside the can, and also clean up inside the oil housing itself. Now it does have a rubber gasket right here, and they give you one in the filter box, so I basically clean out the groove in that, and then I dip the rubber washer in oil and then put it back on and put the filter in and tighten it down. You don't need to tighten it too tight, but tighten it tight enough to where it's not going to leak. And I give it a pretty good snug deal. Now this bottom plug, I put Teflon tape on this bottom plug, and in the future I think I might put like a little screw fitting where you don't really have to take it off. You just kind of unscrew it and drain the fluid out of it. I think that's what I'll do in the future. But right here I get everything going, and I Teflon tape both the plug in the bottom of the filter and the plug in the drain pan also. And it looked like whoever had this before had also done that. So I get that all tight, and now it's time to put in the oil. And right over here to the right, you'll see I just took off that cap, and that's where you put the oil. I just love these old tractors. They're so easy to work on. I'm using a 2050 Valvoline. Now, the reason I'm using that is I found out from Bigfoot that was what the previous owners used. So I thought, that we're up in the mountains where it's cold, and Bigfoot, maybe that's the oil that's needed for this machine. So I didn't want to rock the boat. I just used what the previous owner used. And this basically it has two drain plugs down there on the bottom, and that's basically a low, tells you if it's low, and I wait till it comes out of there, and then I actually shut that off, and then I add the last quart and tighten the little top piece. So it takes 5 quarts of oil. Next up, I noticed that Bigfoot's light switch wasn't working, so I replaced that, and the lights worked perfect. And so he'll be happy with that. The next thing to do is to take off the hood, and basically you need to take off the exhaust. So right there, I'm taking off the exhaust and also the air filter, the intake air. And then basically it's easier to get in there and work. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take out the spark plugs, and I pre-gapped these new spark plugs at 0.025, so 0.25. And basically the points are gapped at 0.20, and then there's different opinions about the gap on the spark plugs. I just decided to go with 0.25, and that seemed like it was fine for this tractor. Now they say you can range from like 0.24 to 0.32, but I read in a forum a lot of guys are just running 0.25, so that's what I did. And yeah, we change all the spark plugs. Now, originally, as soon as I took off this rotor cap, I looked inside, and there was a lot of trouble in there. The rotor cap was each terminal on the rotor cap was corroded like really green, and the points were all green and corroded. And actually, when I started to take out the points, so right there, I'm rotating it to top dead center just to check the gap on the original points. And now right here, here's a little bit better view. Now you can see how rusted and corroded. This has not been changed in a long time. And basically, to give this thing a really good tune-up, I need to get these points out of here. And as soon as I took the points out, they actually, the tip, the part that bolts onto the bolt broke off, and it was all rusted, and it was in pretty bad shape. But I tried to clean it up as best as I could inside, and then I basically put the new points in there, and I put a little grease on the outside of the rotor piece that turns around. I forget what you call that, but I put a little grease on there, and then I basically made sure to. It's a little hard to see because it's pretty tight to work in there. Matter of fact, you got to be. I put this magnetic tray underneath because you're going to drop the screw a few times before you get it in there. And right there, I get the points and condenser all bolted down real nice. And now it's time to set the gap on the new points. And I use a feeler gauge, and I set the points at 0.20. And yeah, that seemed to go pretty good actually. And I was actually going to, so right there, I change out, I put a new cap, new rotor, and I was gonna change the plugs. Matter of fact, I got these plug wires, and I'm starting to change these plugs. I basically measure it, and then I cut the wire, and I'm gonna make some new plugs for this thing. But I realized that these shitty plugs that came in this package were not as good as the plug wires. I'm sorry, the plug wires. So the plug wires that came in the package were not as good as the plug wires that were on it currently. And so even though I want to replace those wires eventually, the ones that it had were better than the ones that I just bought. So I get all that changed, and so it's got change oil, change filter, fuel filter, new plugs, new points, new condenser. Everything's looking pretty good. Now it was just time to fire it up and see how I didn't mess with the timing. I checked where it was located, and it looked okay. So now it's just a matter of I needed to put the exhaust back on and the air intake and give it a test fire and see how it ran.
Running? Yeah. How's she running, John?
Running great.
Once I was satisfied with how it was running, it's time to put the sheet metal back on and get the exhaust all bolted up really nice and take it for a test run and make sure it was ready for Bigfoot to pick it up. And actually, up to now, actually everything's really went well. The one thing that I did see was the oil has been changed. I mean, it wasn't sludgy at all, but the biggest problem was the points. The points looked really bad. The rotor cap looked really bad. The plugs looked really bad. But once I got all those done, it really started sounding good. It really sounds good at this point. It even idles really nice. I did notice on the other side where the governor is, to the left of the carburetor, the governor outside plate seemed like it was had a little bit of a leak. So I went over there, and sure enough, the bolts were a little bit loose. So I got all those tightened up and ready to go, and it sure was running good. I think Bigfoot will be really happy. Next up, it was time to take it for a little test run before Bigfoot showed up, and it ran really good, actually. It had no sputtering. It was very, it really sounded a lot better than when he first came in. Probably the next thing I suggest to Bigfoot is that we rebuild the carburetor. It had a little bit of smoke, but not much. Once I started running it, it didn't smoke at all. But I did notice a little bit of smoke, so probably I'm gonna suggest that we do a carburetor rebuild at some point. But other than that, this thing was ready to go, and it's a lot of fun to drive. I actually like driving it slow, but I threw it in third and fourth gear just for fun to see how it ran, and it really ran good. So this thing's pretty much ready for Bigfoot.
I just love this old tractor. Thanks, John, for getting her fixed up.
Yeah. Happy to help. Enjoy. There he goes, it's a working man. He's trying to make a living any way he can. And he'll break